quite interesting that at the beginning of this debate, we heard from our opponents the benefits of doctors in talking about things like Doctors Without Borders and talking about things like vaccines and curing polio. But by the end of it, we had heard that doctors are beneficial for you because they tell you how to buy your food. So, what we will say is, I first want to answer the question that we heard, which is, if you were about to die, like if you had no food, and if you had cancer, who would you want to visit your house? A farmer or a doctor? What we would say is that we would unambiguously choose a farmer. Why is this? Because let's say in both cases, you are bound to die. Without food, you will die in around 5 to 7 days, and it is a torturous death. But if you have cancer, even if you had a doctor with you, you still might die. You would need things like surgery, and you would need to go through chemotherapy, and it would generally be a very bad life. What we would say is that if you did not have food, your life would be much more torturous, and it would be much shorter. And even if you had a doctor, it would only be slightly longer, but it would still be a quite bad life. What we would say is that if you had food, right, you need to thank the farmer for it. And you can't just ask for a farmer. You need to ask for a farmer and their plot of land and the seeds and the technology. Just like how with a doctor, you would ask for certain anesthetics, MRI scans, and x-rays. We think that you cannot simply analyze a doctor with their own innate knowledge and a farmer with their own innate knowledge. But rather, you need to take a look at what farmers actually use to benefit individuals within our community. We think that we would much rather not die within 7 days of starvation than try a chance at living 1 year with a doctor.
Now, what have we told you today, ladies and gentlemen? We've told you two separate ideas: how farmers benefit the greatest number of people possible, and how they're key to economic growth. We see that farmers not only provide food to everybody in the world, but also allow for vital constructs, the most important invention of mankind, perhaps, cities. This allows people to liberate themselves from their physiological needs, in a sense. It allows people to access things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to, and they would otherwise have to dedicate time towards. It allows people to develop things professionally in ways that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, and farmers are able to make sure that people live the lives the way that they want to, both feasibly, livably, and through whatever path, whatever occupation, whatever type of education they want to achieve. We then talked about economic growth and how farming is necessary because it's highly important for manufacturing, for example, cotton. It's highly important for countries to sustain themselves. It's highly important to integrate a country into global economy. We've told you all of these things about how we need farmers, we need agricultural output. We've told you why it's going to be the only thing that's able to benefit everybody no matter where they are due to commerce and trade, imports and exports. We've told you that farmers are people that you should be thanking if you have the basic conditions to be able to live, because they are ultimately the root of our ability to provide for ourselves and our ability to choose whatever developmental path that is in front of us. So in conclusion, we'd like to bring up one other example. Something that's highly important in the medical industry, a very common anesthetic, morphine, is derived from the opioid plants. And without farming, without large-scale farming, it would not be accessible, it would not be inexpensive enough to use as widely as it is. And we see that, in many senses, the medical industry is contingent upon the farming industry.
And so generally, what does this case really come down to? We think that what we really discussed is that farmers are essentially better than doctors, and the kind of arguments that we've talked about are very basic, understandable, straightforward ones. That everyone needs food to survive, but not necessarily everyone will require a surgery in their life. Most people within this room do not require a surgery. And we've already shown you the greater universality. We've shown you how farmers are more exportable, that they help everyone around the world, whereas only a small, significant, selective portion of doctors do the same thing. But more than that, we've also really shown you how a lot of the benefits that our opponents talk about when they talk about things like doctors don't really exist under the notion of what a doctor is. They try to equate things like solving essentially solving diseases and developing vaccines to doctors. But that's not necessarily true. You need to equate that to microbiologists. You need to create that, you need to give that kind of credit to people like Frederick Banting, right? Who was someone who essentially who essentially created penicillin. But and so essentially what we've really shown you is that farmers as a whole, with the technology that they're given, are more important than doctors with the technology that they are given. not only because they help more people, but also because the kind of help that they do give is more essential, and if they didn't have it, their lives would be far shorter and far worse. Thank you.